My ex-boyfriend told everyone he upgraded when he left me for an Instagram influencer. He called my career boring. He said I lacked ambition. Then, 6 months later, he opened the New York Times and saw my face staring back at him, with a headline that made his new girlfriend ask questions he couldn't answer. If you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or made to feel small by someone who shove lifted you up, this story is for you. Hit that like button, subscribe, and buckle in. Because today's story is about what happens when the person who bet against you realizes they just made the worst mistake of their life. I met Tyler Brunnan at a rooftop networking event in downtown Seattle. It was one of those painfully hip gatherings where everyone wore expensive casual clothes and held craft cocktails they weren't really drinking. I'd been dragged there by my coworker someone who insisted I needed to get out more after spending 3 straight weekends debugging code. Tyler approached me at the railing overlooking the city lights. He had that effortless confidence, tall, well-dressed, the kind of smile that made you feel like you were the only person in the room. We talked about everything except work at first. He made me laugh. He asked questions that seemed genuinely curious. When I finally mentioned I was a software engineer, his eyes lit up. "That's incredible," he said. "I'm in marketing, so I'm basically the person who makes what you build actually matter to people." I laughed it off. It seemed like harmless banter. We dated for 3 years. In the beginning, Tyler was everything I thought I wanted. He was social where I was reserved. He knew how to work a room, how to make friends with bartenders and baristas, how to turn casual acquaintances into professional connections. I admired that. I'd spent so much of my life in front of screens, in servers and code repositories, that his world felt vibrant and alive in ways mine didn't. But slowly, so slowly I didn't notice until it had already happened, Tyler's admiration curdled into something else. It started with small comments. We'd be at dinner parties with his marketing friends, and someone would ask what I did. "Zara's a software engineer," Tyler would say, and then immediately pivot. "She's brilliant with computers, but don't ask her to explain it. We'll be here all night." Everyone would laugh. I'd smile along, trying not to feel the sting. When I got excited about a breakthrough in machine learning ethics, my actual passion, the intersection of technology and human rights, Tyler would nod absently and change the subject. "That's great, babe. Hey, did I tell you about the campaign we just landed?" His work was always front and center. His wins were our wins. When his agency signed a major client, we celebrated with expensive dinners and champagne. When I spent 6 months developing an algorithmic bias detection tool that could save lives, Tyler said, "That's cool," and went back to scrolling Instagram. The real erosion happened in social settings. Tyler had a way of making me invisible. We'd be at parties, and he'd light up the room with stories about his latest campaign, his creative ideas, his vision. If someone asked me about my work, Tyler would jump in. "Zara's doing some AI stuff, very technical, very niche." Then he'd steer the conversation back to himself. I started to shrink. I stopped mentioning my projects. I stopped trying to contribute to conversations about innovation or technology because Tyler would get this look, tight-lipped, eyes slightly narrowed, like I was embarrassing him by talking too much. One night, lying in bed after another party where I'd barely spoken, I asked him, "Do you think my work matters?" Tyler turned to me surprised. "Of course it matters, Zara. It's just, it's not exactly sexy. Marketing, creative work, people understand that. They can see it. But algorithms and code," he shrugged. "It's important, but it's not. I don't know. It's not the kind of thing that changes lives, I stared at the ceiling, something cold settling in my chest. The algorithmic bias tool I'd helped develop was literally being tested in healthcare diagnostics to ensure Black patients weren't misdiagnosed by AI systems. But Tyler had never asked enough questions to know that. "Right," I said quietly, "not sexy." Then came the promotion. After 2 years of 70-hour weeks, research, presentations, and fighting for funding, I was offered the lead position on a major project, developing ethical AI frameworks for a consortium of hospitals. It was everything I'd worked for. The pay was substantial. The impact was real. The recognition in my field was significant. I told Tyler over dinner at our favorite Italian place. I'd rehearsed it in my head all day, imagining his pride, his excitement. "That's amazing," he said, but his smile didn't reach his eyes. "Lead position, huh? Wow, big responsibility." "I know. I'm terrified and thrilled and—" "Does that mean you'll be working even more hours?" I hesitated. "Probably, at least for the first few months while we build the framework." Tyler nodded slowly, pushing pasta around his plate. "Right, of course." The rest of dinner was strained. He asked surface-level questions but seemed distracted. When we got home, he said he had a headache and went to bed early. Over the next 2 weeks, Tyler became distant. He stayed late at work. He was short in texts. When I tried to talk about the project, the team I was building, the ethical questions we were grappling with, his responses were monosyllabic. Then, on a rainy Tuesday evening, he came home and said we needed to talk. I knew before he said the words. "You always know." "I don't think this is working anymore," Tyler said. We were standing in our living room, his living room, technically, since his name was on the lease. "I've been thinking about it a lot, and I need something different." "Different how?" My voice sounded far away. "I need someone who matches my energy, someone ambitious, someone who's not just buried in work all the time." I almost laughed. "Tyler, I just got promoted to lead one of the most important projects of my career. That is ambition." "That's not what I mean." He ran a hand through his hair, frustrated. "You're ambitious about your thing, sure, but it's so insular. It's just code and data, and it's not. I need someone who's living life, Zara, someone exciting." The word hit me like a slap. Exciting. "I'm not excited," I repeated flatly. That came out wrong. No, I think it came out exactly right. We stood there in horrible silence. Rain drummed against the windows. Somewhere in the building, someone was playing music too loud. "I'm sorry," Tyler said, and he sounded like he meant it. "You deserve someone who appreciates what you do. I'm just not that person." I moved out that weekend. Someone helped me pack my things while Tyler conveniently stayed at a friend's place. I cried exactly once in the bathroom, door locked, so someone wouldn't hear. Then I locked it down. I had work to do, a project to lead, a team depending on me. I could fall apart later. Except Tyler didn't let me disappear quietly. 4 days after our breakup, Vanessa Lorraine appeared on his Instagram. She was beautiful in that carefully curated way, long beach waves, perfect makeup, designer athleisure. Her bio said lifestyle content creator, and she had 200,000 followers. The first photo was innocent enough. Tyler and Vanessa at a coffee shop, smiling. The caption, "New adventures with this one." I told myself it didn't matter. I blocked him. I muted mutual friends who might post about him. I threw myself into work. But screenshots have a way of finding you. Someone forwarded me the first one with just, "I'm sorry, thought you should know." It was Tyler and Vanessa at a Michelin-starred restaurant. The caption, "Finally found someone who appreciates the finer things in life. Here's to upgrades." Upgrades. The word sat in my stomach like poison. More screenshots followed over the next weeks, forwarded by well-meaning friends who thought I needed to know. Tyler and Vanessa in Cuba. Tyler and Vanessa at an exclusive art gallery opening. Tyler and Vanessa at a rooftop party, surrounded by beautiful people, Tyler's arm around her waist, both of them laughing at something off camera. The captions were worse than the photos. "Living my best life with someone who actually gets it. Grateful every day that I found someone who matches my energy. She makes everything brighter. This is what happiness looks like." Each one was a knife. Each one said the same thing. "You weren't enough. She is." Our mutual friends started asking careful questions. "How are you doing?" With that sympathetic head tilt. Some took sides. A few of Tyler's friends unfollowed me on social media, which felt like a strange, petty rejection. At a birthday party for someone's boyfriend, I ran into Duruk, one of Tyler's old college friends. He'd had a few drinks and apparently decided honesty was the best policy. "Tyler seems really happy," Duruk said. I mean, no offense, but Vanessa is she's really out there, you know? She's got that whole thing going on, the lifestyle brand, the followers. Tyler always wanted someone who could keep up with him socially. I smiled tightly. I'm happy for him. Yeah, I mean, you guys were great, but you were always so into your work. Tyler needs someone who can be present, you know. I excused myself to the bathroom and stared at my reflection. Was that true? Had I been absent? Too consumed by my work? Was I really just boring? The doubts crept in like water through cracks. The project consumed me. I told myself it was professional dedication, but really it was survival. If I stopped moving, I'd have to feel everything. My team was brilliant. 5 engineers, 2 ethicists, and a medical consultant. We were building something that mattered, AI frameworks that could identify and correct bias in diagnostic algorithms. The stakes were life and death. Studies showed that existing AI systems were significantly more likely to undiagnose pain in Black patients, to miss cardiac symptoms in women, to overlook complications in patients with disabilities. We were going to fix that, or at least we were going to try. The work was grueling. We'd spend hours debating edge cases, testing scenarios, finding gaps in our logic. I'd come home to my new apartment, a tiny studio that smelled faintly of the Indian restaurant downstairs, and collapse on my couch with my laptop, reviewing code until my eyes blurred. Someone worried. "You're going to burn out," she said over lunch one day. "I'm fine." "Zara, you're not fine. You've lost weight. You look exhausted. And you're using work to avoid dealing with the breakup." "I'm dealing with it by building something that matters," I snapped. Then, softer, "I just need to get through this phase. Once the framework is stable, I'll take a break. I promise." But the truth was, work was the only place I felt valuable. In the lab, my ideas mattered. My expertise was respected. I was solving problems that Tyler had dismissed as not sexy. Every line of code felt like proof. I was enough. My work did matter. And then Tyler's posts would find me again. I'd made the mistake of not blocking him on LinkedIn. I thought it was professional, mature. We might cross paths in the Seattle tech scene eventually. But Tyler used LinkedIn like a personal highlight reel. "Thrilled to announce our agency just won the Cascade Award for Best Integrated Campaign. Couldn't have done it without this incredible team, and my partner in crime who keeps me grounded." The photo showed Tyler holding an award, Vanessa beside him in a cocktail dress, her hand on his chest. I stared at it during a team meeting, half listening to our ethicist discuss consent frameworks. The comments on Tyler's post were full of congratulations, heart emojis, people saying things like "power couple," and "she's a keeper." "Zara, thoughts?" I looked up. My entire team was staring at me. "Sorry, could you repeat the question?" We pushed forward. 3 months in, we had a working prototype. 4 months in, we were running trials with a partner hospital in Portland. 5 months in, our data was showing real results, a 34% reduction in diagnostic bias across our test parameters. I should have been elated. Instead, I felt hollow. Because Tyler's narrative had won. In the court of social media, in the eyes of our mutual friends, he'd moved on to someone better, someone exciting, someone worth showing off. And I was alone in a studio apartment that smelled like curry, working 80-hour weeks on something most people didn't understand. The breaking point came on a Friday night. I'd been invited to a gallery opening by an old friend from college. I almost didn't go. I was exhausted, and the thought of making small talk felt impossible. But someone had literally showed up at my apartment with makeup and a dress, refusing to take no for an answer. "You need to remember you're a human person," she said, "not just a brain in a jar that writes code." The gallery was beautiful, high ceilings, white walls, abstract art that probably meant something to someone. I was nursing a glass of wine, standing in front of a painting that looked like a toddler had thrown paint at a canvas, when I heard the laugh. Tyler's laugh, distinctive, loud, the kind that made everyone turn to look. I turned. He was across the room with Vanessa, both of them dressed impeccably, surrounded by a small crowd. Vanessa was holding court, talking animatedly, gesturing with her wine glass. Tyler was looking at her the way he used to look at me in the very beginning before the erosion started. I should have left. I should have walked out immediately. But I couldn't move. Tyler saw me. For a moment, genuine surprise crossed his face. Then something else, discomfort, maybe guilt. He said something to Vanessa and started walking toward me. Zara, hey, I didn't know you'd be here. Friend of the artist, I said, aiming for casualness and landing somewhere near strangled. Right, cool. Tyler shifted his weight. How are you? How's the project? Good, really good actually. We're seeing promising results. That's great, that's really great. Silence stretched between us like taffy. Across the room, Vanessa was watching us with undisguised curiosity. You look good, Tyler said. Tired but good. Thanks. I took a sip of wine to have something to do with my hands. You look happy. I am. He said it with emphasis, like he was trying to convince both of us. Vanessa's amazing. She just gets life, you know? She's so present, so engaged with everything. It's been really refreshing. The implication hung in the air, unlike you. I'm happy for you, I said, and I almost meant it. Tyler nodded. You should come say hi. Vanessa's heard a lot about you. I'm sure she has. No, I mean good things. I've told her you're brilliant. Seriously, Zara, what you're doing is important even if it's not. You know. Sexy, I supplied. He had the decency to wince. I was an ass when I said that. I'm sorry, I just meant. Tyler, Vanessa appeared beside us like a perfectly styled ghost. Up close, she was even more beautiful, flawless skin, eyes that sparkled with what looked like genuine warmth. You must be Zara. I've heard so much about you. She extended a hand. I shook it, feeling like I was in a fever dream. Tyler says you're doing amazing work in AI, Vanessa continued. That's so cool. I wish I understood that stuff better. I'm more of a creative type, you know, but I think it's incredible that there are people like you making the world better behind the scenes. Behind the scenes. Thanks, I managed. We should totally get coffee sometime, Vanessa said brightly. I'd love to pick your brain about work-life balance. Tyler says you were always so dedicated, but I think it's so important to make time for life, too, you know. She didn't mean it cruelly. That was somehow worse. She was genuinely offering friendship, genuinely trying to be kind, while simultaneously reinforcing everything Tyler had implied. That I'd been too focused on work, that I'd failed at the life part of work-life balance, that she'd succeeded where I'd failed. That sounds great, I lied. I should go find my friend. Good to see you both. I walked away with as much dignity as I could muster, found Simone, made an excuse about a headache, left. I cried the entire drive home. Ugly crying, the kind where you can't catch your breath, where snot runs down your face and you don't even care. I cried for the relationship I'd lost, for the person Tyler used to be, for the version of me that had believed I was enough. But mostly, I cried because Vanessa was right. I had been living behind the scenes. I'd been so focused on the work that I'd forgotten to build a life around it. When I got home, I sat in my car for 20 minutes, staring at my building. Then I pulled out my phone and looked at Tyler's Instagram one more time. His latest post, from 2 hours ago, a photo of him and Vanessa at the gallery, her head on his shoulder, both of them glowing. The caption, "Grateful I found someone who actually has ambition and knows how to live. Best of both worlds." Something inside me cracked. Not broke, cracked, like ice on a lake, spreading fractures across the surface. I wasn't angry, not yet. I was something colder, clearer. Tyler thought he'd upgraded. He'd built an entire public narrative around it. The boring, work-obsessed ex, the vibrant new girlfriend who got it. He'd turned our relationship into a cautionary tale about choosing wrong, and himself into the hero who finally figured it out. I went upstairs, opened my laptop, and got back to work. Not because I was avoiding my feelings this time. Because I was going to prove him wrong. I need to be clear about something. I didn't set out to destroy Tyler. I didn't devise some elaborate scheme to humiliate him publicly. That's not who I am, and honestly, I was too exhausted for that kind of energy. But I did make a decision that night, sitting in my studio apartment with tears still drying on my face. I decided that Tyler was wrong. About me, about my work, about what mattered. And I decided that I was going to succeed so loudly, so undeniably, that everyone, including him, would have to reckon with it. The work became my obsession, but in a different way. Before, I'd been hiding in it. Now I was building something with intention. Every late night, every solved problem, every breakthrough felt like laying another brick in a foundation. 6 months after the breakup, our AI ethics framework was ready for peer review. We submitted our research to 3 major conferences: the International Conference on Machine Learning, the ACM Conference on Fairness, Accountability, and Transparency, and the Healthcare AI Summit. We were accepted to all 3. Suddenly, I was traveling: Boston, Vancouver, Berlin, presenting our work to rooms full of experts who asked sharp questions and took notes. Our framework was getting attention not just for its technical elegance, but for its real-world impact. The hospital trials were showing results that exceeded our projections. Diagnostic accuracy for marginalized patient populations had improved by 41%. We were catching complications earlier, reducing misdiagnoses, literally saving lives. And people noticed. A researcher from MIT reached out about collaboration. A healthcare nonprofit wanted to implement our framework across their network. A venture capital firm asked if we'd consider spinning off into a startup. I was still living in my tiny studio, still eating too much takeout, still working brutal hours. But something had shifted. I wasn't hiding anymore. I was present in rooms that mattered, contributing to conversations that would shape the future of healthcare technology. My LinkedIn started blowing up with connection requests. Conference attendees tagged me in posts about ethical AI. My follower count crept up, not influencer numbers, but respectful numbers for someone in my field. Tyler noticed. Of course he did. He sent a LinkedIn message. "Hey, I saw you speak at ICML. That's incredible. Really proud of you." I stared at it for a long time. Then I closed the notification without responding. 2 weeks later, another message. "Hope you're doing well. I would love to catch up sometime if you're free." Delete. I wasn't interested in his validation anymore. I didn't need Tyler to be proud of me. I didn't need him to acknowledge that he'd been wrong. Or so I told myself. The truth was more complicated. Late at night, when I couldn't sleep, I'd imagine scenarios where Tyler saw my success and realized what he'd lost, where Vanessa's carefully curated lifestyle felt hollow compared to work that actually mattered, where he understood, viscerally, that he'd made a catastrophic mistake. But I didn't know how to make that happen, and I wasn't sure I wanted to. Revenge fantasies were one thing, actually pursuing them felt petty beneath me. Then Gabriel Reeves called. Gabriel was a journalist for the New York Times, working on a feature about young innovators reshaping AI. Someone at the Healthcare AI Summit had recommended me, and Gabriel wanted to talk. "I'm interested in the human story," Gabriel said during our initial call. "Not just the technology, but who you are, what drives you, the obstacles you've faced. The Times wants to highlight people who are doing important work that doesn't get the spotlight it deserves." My first instinct was to say no. I was a behind-the-scenes person. I built things. I didn't talk about building things. But Simone convinced me otherwise. "This is huge, Zara. The New York Times. Do you understand what that could mean for your career, for the project, for getting this framework implemented more widely?" "I'm not good at interviews," I protested. "You're brilliant at explaining complex ideas. This is just explaining your ideas to someone with a big platform." I agreed to a preliminary meeting. Gabriel met me at a coffee shop near the university. He was younger than I expected, maybe early 30s, wearing horn-rimmed glasses and a slightly rumpled blazer. He had a warm, disarming manner that made you want to tell him things. We talked for 3 hours. He asked about the project, yes, but also about my background, my journey into tech, the challenges I'd faced as a woman in a male-dominated field. He asked about imposter syndrome, about moments I'd wanted to quit, about what kept me going. And then he asked, "Has anyone ever made you feel like this work doesn't matter, like it's not important?" The question landed like a punch. I hesitated. Gabriel waited, pen hovering over his notebook. "Yes," I said finally. "Someone important to me once told me my work wasn't sexy, that it was important maybe, but not the kind of thing that changes lives or matters to people." How did that make you feel? Small, invisible, like I'd chosen the wrong path. And now I know he was wrong. This work does change lives. It just does it quietly. Gabriel smiled. "That's beautiful. Can I quote you on that?" The interview continued. Gabriel asked if he could visit our lab, observe our team, interview colleagues. I agreed, though part of me felt exposed, vulnerable. Over the next month, Gabriel was a presence in my professional life. He shadowed me at the lab, sat in on team meetings, interviewed my colleagues and collaborators. He was thorough, respectful, genuinely curious. He also asked more personal questions. "Tell me about a time someone underestimated you. Do you ever doubt yourself? What do you wish people understood about work like yours?" I found myself telling him things I'd never articulated before, about the loneliness of being the only woman in many rooms early in my career, about the subtle ways people dismissed my contributions, about learning to advocate for myself, about believing I was boring because someone I loved had convinced me I was. I didn't mention Tyler by name. I was careful about that. But I described the dynamic, a relationship where my work was treated as less important, where I'd been made to feel like I was choosing wrong by prioritizing my career. "That must have been painful," Gabriel said quietly. "It was, but it also taught me something important. I'd rather be underestimated and prove people wrong than play small to make someone else comfortable." Gabriel's eyes lit up. "That's going in the article." 2 months later, Gabriel sent me a draft. I read it alone in my apartment on a Sunday morning, coffee cooling beside me, holding my breath. The article was beautiful. Gabriel had woven together the technical details of our work with the human story, my story. He'd highlighted the impact of our framework, the lives it was saving, the potential it had to reshape healthcare AI. But he'd also included the personal stuff, the imposter syndrome, the moments of doubt, the relationship where I'd been made to feel small. There was one paragraph that made my heart stop. Zara recalls a former partner who told her that her work, while technically impressive, wasn't sexy, wasn't the kind of career that captured public imagination or changed lives in visible ways. It's a criticism she's heard echoed, implicitly, throughout her career. That work done behind the scenes, in code and algorithms, matters less than work that's easily digestible or aesthetically appealing. But as Zara's team proves, the work that happens in shadows can illuminate entire systems and save lives that more visible work never reaches. I read it 3 times. Gabriel hadn't mentioned Tyler's name. He didn't need to. But anyone who knew about our breakup, who'd seen Tyler's upgrade narrative play out on social media, would recognize the reference. And Tyler himself, he'd know exactly what and who I was talking about. I felt something uncoil in my chest. Not quite satisfaction, not quite vindication, something quieter, truer. This wasn't revenge, this was the truth. I wrote back to Gabriel, "It's perfect, thank you for telling this story." The article was scheduled to run in 6 weeks, as part of a Sunday feature on innovation. I didn't tell anyone except Simone. I didn't post about it on social media. I just went back to work, to the daily rhythm of problem-solving and team meetings and incremental progress. But I started sleeping better. In those 6 weeks, Tyler tried to reach out twice more, once via Instagram DM, "Miss talking to you, hope you're well." Once via email, "Saw you're doing amazing things, would love to reconnect, coffee sometime." I deleted both without responding. Vanessa posted a sponsored content photo with a meditation app, caption, In a world of hustle culture, remember to slow down and breathe. Person Female Sparkle's self-care balance slow living. I didn't feel angry anymore. I felt curious, like I was watching a play from the audience, waiting to see how the actors would react when the script changed. 2 days before the article was scheduled to run, Gabriel sent me a heads-up email. Article drops Sunday morning. Already getting great internal response at the Times. Prepare for some attention. You deserve it. I spent Saturday preparing. I cleaned my apartment. I meal prepped for the week. I went for a long run along Lake Washington, letting the cold air clear my head. That night I couldn't sleep. Not from anxiety exactly, from anticipation. I kept imagining Tyler's face when he saw the article, when he realized that the work he'd dismissed was being celebrated by one of the most respected publications in the world, when he understood that boring and important weren't mutually exclusive, and that he'd been too shallow to see the difference. At 3 a.m., I gave up on sleep and made tea, sat on my couch with my laptop, pulling up the Times website even though I knew the article wouldn't be live yet. At 5 a.m., I refreshed the page. There it was. The Invisible Innovators, how a team of engineers is quietly revolutionizing healthcare AI. By Gabriel Reeves. My face filled the header image, a candid shot Gabriel had taken in our lab, me smiling at something a colleague had said, surrounded by monitors and diagrams. I looked competent, confident, like someone who mattered. I read the article again, slowly this time, letting it sink in. It was really happening. And Tyler was going to see it. The article went live at 5:47 a.m. Pacific time. By 7 a.m., my phone had erupted. Text from Simone. Zara, oh my God, the New York Times, I'm crying. Email from my department chair. Congratulations on the well-deserved recognition. This is tremendous for the program. LinkedIn notifications. 47, then 89, then 143. Twitter mentions from people I'd never met, celebrating the work, sharing quotes from the article. I made more tea and watched it unfold like a slow-motion avalanche. By 9 a.m., the article was trending in tech circles. People were sharing it with comments like, "This is the kind of innovation we should be celebrating," and required reading for anyone working in AI ethics. By 10 a.m., it had jumped beyond tech circles. Healthcare professionals, academics, people I'd never heard of were weighing in. The comments section of the article is filled with people sharing their own experiences with medical bias, with algorithmic discrimination, with feeling invisible in systems that weren't designed for them. My inbox became unmanageable. Interview requests from podcasts, invitations to speak at conferences, messages from venture capital firms and nonprofits and research institutions. Simone called at 10:30. Have you looked at LinkedIn? I can't keep up with the notifications. Zara, your profile has been viewed 3,000 times today. Companies are reaching out. The Times article is the third most shared piece in the technology section. You're everywhere. I felt dizzy. This is insane. This is what you deserve. This is what happens when the world finally sees what I've been seeing for years. By noon, the article had been shared over 50,000 times across social platforms. Major tech blogs were writing response pieces. A healthcare policy organization quoted me in a statement to Congress about AI regulation. I was sitting in my apartment, still in pajamas, watching my entire professional world shift on its axis. And then at 12:47 p.m., Tyler texted. Just saw the Times article. Zara, this is incredible. I'm so proud of you. I stared at the message. 3 hours. It had taken him 3 hours after the article dropped to reach out. Which meant he'd probably seen it earlier, had sat with it, had processed what it meant. I didn't respond. 5 minutes later, another text. Seriously, you're amazing. This is huge. Can we talk? Delete. At 1:15 p.m., Tyler called. I let it go to voicemail. At 2 p.m., he sent an Instagram DM. I know I don't deserve your time, but I'd really like to talk. What you're doing is incredible, and I was an idiot for not seeing it before. I blocked him. Not out of anger, out of finality. I didn't need his validation. I didn't need him to admit he'd been wrong. The entire world was seeing what he'd failed to see, and that was enough. But the real shift wasn't about Tyler reaching out. It was about what started happening in our mutual circles. Simone forwarded me a screenshot at 3 p.m. It was from a group chat with several of Tyler's friends, people who'd been at that birthday party where Derek had told me Tyler needed someone who could keep up with him socially. Derek had written, "Did you guys see the NYT article about Zara? Holy shit, Tyler really fumbled that one." Someone else replied, "Wait, that's Tyler's ex, the one he said was too into her work." Another, "Dude, he literally posted about upgrading after they broke up. This is awkward AF." Simone wrote, "The group chat is spiraling, everyone's talking about it." I felt a spark of something, not quite satisfied, something sharper, cleaner. At 4 p.m., an old college friend messaged, "Just read the Times piece. Isn't Tyler your ex? He must be kicking himself." At 5 p.m., my cousin sent, "Tyler just posted something weird on Instagram. Did you see it?" I had blocked Tyler, but I pulled up his profile on a browser where I wasn't logged in. Tyler's latest post from 30 minutes ago, a photo of a sunset over Elliott Bay. The caption, "Proud of everyone out there doing important work, whether it's visible or not. We all contribute in different ways." The comments section was brutal. "Is this about your ex, who's in the NYT today? Weird timing for this post, man. So you're proud of her now, haha. Vanessa, you okay with this post?" Someone had even commented, "Brother, just say you made a mistake and go." I closed the browser, heart pounding. This wasn't anything I'd done. I hadn't tagged Tyler, hadn't mentioned him, hadn't encouraged anyone to make the connection. But people were making it anyway, because Tyler had been so public about his narrative. The upgrade story was collapsing under its own weight. At 6 p.m., Simone called again. "You need to see Vanessa's story." Retry. Continue. Not looking at their social media. "Zara, trust me on this." I looked. Vanessa had posted an Instagram story, a photo of herself in workout gear looking pensive. The text overlay read, "Sometimes the universe shows you that what you thought was important isn't. Growth is uncomfortable. Seedling." The subtext was clear, and the replies, which I could see were numerous, though I couldn't read them without an account, suggested people were reading between the lines. "They're fighting," Simone said. "They have to be, this is wild." I felt nothing, or maybe I felt everything, compressed into something so dense it was almost peaceful. Tyler had built a story about me, the boring ex who was too consumed by work to really live. He'd built a story about himself, the guy who finally figured out what he wanted, who upgraded to someone better. And now both stories were crumbling, because the truth had surfaced. Over the next week, the avalanche continued. I was invited to speak at Stanford, at Harvard, at a major AI policy summit in Washington, D.C. I was offered a book deal to write about ethical AI development. I was approached by 2 different documentary filmmakers. Our research team was offered additional funding. Hospitals across the country reached out about implementing our framework. The World Health Organization invited me to consult on global AI healthcare standards. My tiny studio apartment became a command center, my laptop perpetually open, my phone always buzzing. I hired a publicist to manage interview requests. I upgraded my wardrobe for television appearances. I practiced talking about my work in ways that were accessible without being condescending. And through it all, Tyler kept trying. He sent flowers to my office with a card. "You were always extraordinary. I'm sorry I didn't see it clearly enough. T." I donated them to a nearby hospital. He left a voicemail. "Zara, please. I know I don't deserve your time, but I need to explain. I was threatened by your success. I was insecure and small, and I took it out on you by minimizing what you did. I was wrong. Please let me apologize properly. I deleted it without finishing. He showed up at a conference where I was speaking. I saw him in the back of the auditorium during my keynote. When I finished, he tried to approach me, but my publicist intercepted him, politely but firmly suggesting he leave. 2 weeks after the article dropped, Simone forwarded me another screenshot. Tyler and Vanessa had broken up. Vanessa had posted a long, thoughtful caption about realizing that you're in a relationship with someone who's still in love with the idea of someone else, and knowing you're worth enough to walk away. The comments were sympathetic, supportive. Vanessa came out of it looking self-aware and dignified. Tyler came out of it looking exactly like what he was. A man who'd sabotaged the best thing that ever happened to him because his ego couldn't handle his partner's success. I should have felt victorious. This was everything my late-night fantasies had imagined, Tyler losing the upgrade, the public narrative shifting, everyone seeing him clearly. But mostly I felt tired. And free. Because here's what I'd learned. Tyler's validation had never been the point. The revenge wasn't him realizing he'd been wrong. The revenge was me realizing I'd never needed him to be right. The work had always mattered. I'd always been enough. The article, the recognition, the platform, those were just the world catching up to what I'd known, deep down, even when Tyler had tried to convince me otherwise. At the 1-month mark after the article's publication, I was invited to give a TED Talk. The topic, the power of invisible work. I spent 2 weeks writing and rewriting the talk. I wanted to get it right, not just for me, but for everyone who'd ever been made to feel small for doing important work that didn't photograph well, that didn't fit neatly into social media highlight reels. The talk was scheduled for a conference in Vancouver. Simone flew up to support me. My team was there. Gabriel Reeves came to cover it for a follow-up piece. Backstage, waiting to go on, I pulled out my phone. I don't know why, muscle memory, maybe, or morbid curiosity. I unblocked Tyler on Instagram and looked at his profile. His last post from 3 days ago was a photo of a book, Daring Greatly by Brené Brown. The caption, learning to sit with discomfort and own my mistakes. Growth isn't easy, but it's necessary. The comments were sparse, supportive but quiet. Vanessa had unfollowed him. Most of his photos with her had been archived. And his follower count had dropped, not dramatically, but noticeably. The narrative he'd built had collapsed, and he was trying to build a new one where he was self-aware, humble, learning. Maybe he was. People can change. But it wasn't my concern anymore. I blocked him again and put my phone away. When I walked on stage, the applause was immediate and genuine. 1,500 people, all there to hear what I had to say. I spoke for 18 minutes about the work that happens in the shadows, about the importance of measuring impact rather than visibility, about refusing to shrink yourself to make others comfortable. I talked about the people who'd underestimated me, not Tyler specifically, but the broader pattern, the systemic dismissal of work that's complex, technical, unglamorous. And I talked about what happens when you stop seeking validation from people who don't understand what you're building, and start trusting that the work itself is enough. The standing ovation lasted 2 minutes. Afterward, dozens of people, mostly women, mostly young, mostly in technical fields, came up to thank me, to tell me their own stories of being dismissed, underestimated, made to feel boring or too intense or not enough. One woman, maybe mid-20s, grabbed my hand. My ex told me I cared too much about my research, that I needed to have more fun. I almost quit my PhD because of it. Did you? I asked. No, and your article reminded me why. Thank you. That night at the hotel, I finally let myself cry. Not sad tears, release. I cried for the version of me who'd believed Tyler when he said I wasn't excited. For the months I'd spent wondering if I'd chosen wrong. For all the times I'd made myself smaller, quieter, less, to make room for someone else's ego. And I cried because I'd made it through, because the work had mattered, because I'd been enough all along. 6 months after the Times article, I moved into a new apartment. A real one-bedroom with windows that overlooked the Space Needle, with room for a proper desk and bookshelves, and a kitchen where I could cook instead of surviving on takeout. Our AI ethics framework has been implemented in 47 hospitals across North America. We'd published 4 peer-reviewed papers. I'd been offered a faculty position at the university, with the freedom to continue leading the project while mentoring graduate students. Vanessa and I ended up following each other on Instagram, oddly enough. She'd pivoted her content toward mental health and authenticity, talking openly about her experience in a relationship where she'd felt like a prop. Her following had grown, but more importantly, her content had depth now. She never mentioned Tyler by name. She didn't need to. I saw Tyler once more at a coffee shop near the university. He was alone, working on his laptop. He looked thinner, tired. He saw me at the same moment I saw him. For a second, neither of us moved. Then he stood up. I walked over, stopped a respectful distance away. Zara. Tyler. I don't want to bother you. I've tried to reach out so many times and you've rightfully ignored me. But if I could just say one thing. Okay. He took a breath. I was threatened by you. By your intelligence, your focus, your purpose. I couldn't handle that you didn't need me to be successful, so I convinced myself, and you, that your success didn't matter. That was cruel and wrong, and I'm sorry. You deserved someone who celebrated you, not diminished you. I'm genuinely happy for everything you've accomplished. You earned every bit of it. I looked at him for a long moment. He looked sincere. Broken, maybe, but sincere. Thank you, I said. I appreciate you saying that. Is there any chance? No, I said gently, but I forgive you for both of us. He nodded. You look happy. I am. Good, that's good. I left him there and walked back into my life, the one I'd built without him, the one where my work mattered and my worth wasn't up for debate. The revenge, if you could call it that, wasn't a single moment. It wasn't Tyler's apology or Vanessa's breakup post or the comments section dragging him. The revenge was building a life so full, so meaningful, so undeniably important that his opinion became irrelevant. The revenge was proving to myself what I should have known all along. I was never boring. I was never lacking. I was never less than. I was exactly enough. And the work, the unsexy, invisible work that Tyler had dismissed. It was saving lives, changing systems, reshaping the future. That was the revenge. That, and knowing that somewhere, Tyler was sitting with the weight of understanding exactly what and who he'd lost. Not because I destroyed him, but because I'd built something he could never touch, never diminish, never take credit for. Something that was entirely, undeniably mine. Sometimes the best revenge isn't destroying someone who underestimated you. It's succeeding so completely, so undeniably that they have to live with the knowledge of what they lost. If this story resonated with you, if you've ever been underestimated, dismissed, or made to feel small, hit that subscribe button. Drop a comment telling me about your own vindication story. And remember, the people who bet against you don't get to narrate your ending. You do. Thanks for listening. Until next time.